Emily Carter had never felt so drained in her life. The cold air of the Chicago train platform wrapped around her like a warning, reminding her how much she wanted to go home after a long, difficult week. She stood with her suitcase at her feet, her eyes heavy from lack of sleep. Her heart heavier from the breakup she still hadn't fully processed. It wasn't a dramatic breakup. No shouting, no betrayal, but it left a quiet ache inside her. It's the kind that made everything feel blurry and slow. She just wanted comfort, a warm bed, and silence. But life had different plans. The loudspeaker crackled overhead, and Emily already feared what was coming before the announcement even finished. The voice, flat and emotionless, confirmed her worst worry. The last train of the night was canceled due to a sudden mechanical failure. Emily stared at the empty tracks as if the train might magically appear if she wished hard enough. It didn't. All she felt was the wind sweeping across the platform, cold and sharp. But she wasn't alone. When Emily looked around, she noticed 5 other passengers had been stranded as well, scattered across the long platform. Most of them wore the same expression. She did a mix of frustration, disbelief, and exhaustion. She didn't know any of them, but the shared disappointment linked them in a quiet way. A voice broke the stillness. "You okay?" Emily turned to see a man with warm brown eyes and a gentle expression. His name, she would later learn, was Daniel Hayes. A traveler with a relaxed posture and a calm energy that seemed to soften the sharp edges of the night. His simple question made something in her soften. "I will be," Emily replied, though she didn't fully believe it. Before Daniel could say more, another voice chimed in from behind them. "This night is about to get interesting, isn't it?" The woman talking was Maya Thompson, full of confidence. With curly dark hair and expressive features that hinted she was someone who carried stories inside her. She didn't seem upset at all, in fact. She looked like she was waiting for something unexpected to happen. As if she enjoyed disruptions. Soon the rest gathered as well. Alex, a quiet young man, held a guitar case and avoided eye contact, but his posture showed he was used to long nights. Sophie, a college student, hugged her coat closer around herself, her cheeks pink from the cold. And Mark, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, kept glancing at his phone with growing worry, as if he were waiting for news he wasn't sure he wanted to receive. None of them wanted to stay in the cold. So when the station guard suggested they move to the older waiting lounge, slightly outdated but heated, they followed him without question. Emily walked in with them, not sure why she felt strangely aware of these strangers, as if the night had already chosen to bind them together. The waiting lounge was dim and quiet. The lights flickered softly, the floors creaked, and the air smelled faintly like old wood and vending machine coffee. Emily took a seat between Daniel and Alex. There was enough space, but sitting close made the room feel warmer, more human. They didn't talk at first. The silence between strangers can be awkward, but that silence didn't stay long. It was Maya who broke it. She shared why she was traveling an art show she hoped would be her breakthrough. Then Sophie mentioned how she was visiting her family for the first time in months. Alex said very little, but he smiled when Maya teased him about what kind of songs he played. Mark admitted he had an urgent reason to get home, though he didn't go into details. And slowly, naturally, they turned to Emily. She hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. But the safety of the moment, the warmth of the room, the fact that these people knew nothing of her life made honesty feel easier. She talked about her job, the stress, and then quietly. She mentioned her breakup, not the details, just the weight of it. To her surprise, no one judged. No one tried to fix her. They just listened, Daniel especially. His eyes stayed on her, steady and kind, without intruding. He didn't ask questions that went too deep. He simply made her feel seen. It was a strange feeling being understood without having to explain much. The conversation flowed quicker after that. They talked about strange travel stories, embarrassing moments, dreams they hadn't told anyone else, and the unexpected ways life changed direction. Emily found herself smiling, really smiling. For the first time in weeks, hours passed, though it didn't feel like it. The lounge felt like a small world of its own, separated from the outside cold. Emily felt a quiet warmth building around them. Not romantic or dramatic at first, just the warmth of being with people who were equally lost for the moment. But just when everything felt calm, everything changed. The lights flickered sharply, once, twice. The room dimmed to a soft orange glow. Maya paused mid-sentence and whispered, "Why do I get the feeling something important is about to happen?" Even Emily felt it, a shift in the air, a sense that this night was about to push them toward something none of them had planned for. When the light steadied, Mark's phone buzzed and he finally spoke about what was weighing on him. "My daughter's sick," he said quietly. "I was supposed to be home tonight." His voice cracked just slightly, enough for Emily to feel a tight pull in her chest. Daniel moved closer to him, not intrusively, but with steady presence. "We'll wait with you," Daniel said. "You're not alone tonight." Those words created a new atmosphere in the room, softer, more connected. Sophie leaned forward, eyes gentle. Alex picked up his guitar and played soft chords that drifted into the shadows, filling the space with calmness. Maya sat down next to Mark, offering quiet comfort without overwhelming him. Emily watched all of this, these strangers becoming something like a temporary family, and realized the night wasn't just about waiting. It was about pausing long enough to see the things she had been too busy or too afraid to notice, that people still cared. That connection could happen anywhere, that her heart wasn't as closed as she thought. She leaned back, letting the warmth of the moment settle inside her. Daniel turned to her again. "Are you heading home too?" His voice was gentle, almost hesitant. She nodded. "Just trying to get back after. A lot." His eyes softened. "You look like someone who carries everything alone." He didn't say it like a criticism. It was said with empathy. Like someone who recognized that kind of weight because he had carried his own before. Emily didn't know what to say, but she liked that he noticed without pressuring her to say more. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible. As the night thinned toward early morning, exhaustion started settling in. Sophie fell asleep, curled against her backpack. Alex played slower, softer. Maya wandered around the room, stretching her legs. Mark sat silently, staring at the snow outside. Daniel leaned back, his eyes half closed. Emily stayed awake, unsure why her heart felt alert, even though her body was tired. Every few minutes, she found her gaze drifting toward Daniel. Something about him felt steady, like an anchor in the middle of uncertainty. She wondered if he felt it too. Just before dawn, the loudspeaker suddenly crackled through the quiet lounge. Everyone sat upright as the announcement came. A temporary train would arrive in 30 minutes to take stranded passengers home. Relief washed through the room, but so did something else. A sense of ending. A sense that whatever had formed between them was fragile, temporary. Something that only existed because of this unusual night. Daniel looked at Emily, unsure, as if he were trying to understand whether this connection was meant to stay in this room or follow them beyond it. "So, I guess this is it," he said softly. Emily opened her mouth, not sure what she wanted to say, whether she wanted to treat it like a passing moment or something meaningful. But before she could answer, Alex's guitar string suddenly snapped with a sharp twang, startling everyone and interrupting her thoughts. Maya laughed in surprise. Sophie woke up with a confused expression. Mark received another message on his phone and exhaled with relief. But Emily didn't hear any of it clearly. All she felt was Daniel's question hanging in the air between them. Was this goodbye? Or the beginning of something neither of them expected? When the door to the platform opened and a gust of icy wind swept inside, Emily stood with her suitcase, looking out at the tracks. The night had shifted something inside, her opened something she thought was broken forever. She took a breath, stepped toward the cold morning air, and walked into the next chapter of a night she would remember for the rest of her life. The cold wind hit Emily as she stepped out of the waiting lounge, but she barely noticed. The night had already shifted something inside her, a quiet restlessness, a flicker of hope she hadn't felt in months. Around her, the other 5 strangers were doing the same, gathering their things, adjusting coats, and preparing to face the first real morning of their unexpected journey together. For a few hours, the waiting lounge had been more than a temporary shelter. It had been a haven, a space where strangers became witnesses to each other's vulnerabilities, fears, and dreams. Mark checked his phone for the 5th time, his brow furrowed. The news of his daughter's illness weighed heavily on him. But now that the temporary train announcement had come, he had a sense of relief mingled with guilt. He was grateful, yet torn. He had grown unexpectedly attached to these people he barely knew. The night had stretched beyond waiting, it had stretched into understanding. Each face held stories they hadn't shared fully yet, but the quiet connection was undeniable. Emily noticed him standing apart for a moment, shoulders tense, and felt a pang of empathy that surprised her. She didn't know him beyond a few shared words, but she felt the weight of his care, and it moved her in a way that left her breathless. Daniel approached Emily, his hands tucked into the pockets of his coat. The chill didn't seem to affect him. "Are you really going home now?" he asked, not as a question, but as if he was testing the possibility that she might stay longer. His eyes searched hers, steady, patient, and full of a silent curiosity. Emily paused. She had no idea what she was expecting from this night. But leaving felt different now. The warmth of conversation, the intimacy of shared silence. The feeling of being understood without judgment, these were things she hadn't realized she had missed. She shook her head slightly and smiled. "I guess so. I should go." But the words felt hollow, like saying goodbye to more than just a place. The train was still 30 minutes away. And the station was waking slowly to the early morning chill. Snowflakes drifted gently across the tracks, sparkling in the pale light of street lamps. Sophie, now awake, stretched and yawned, rubbing her eyes. She seemed lighter somehow, like the long night had given her a break from constant responsibility, even for a few hours. Alex carried his guitar case carefully, occasionally humming a tune under his breath. A song Emily could almost feel vibrating in the air. Maya walked alongside Mark, chatting softly about art exhibitions she wanted to visit. And in her voice, there was an easy openness that felt contagious. Emily walked slightly behind Daniel, hesitant yet drawn to the quiet energy that followed him. As they waited, conversations picked up again. The night wasn't ending with just a train. It was ending with a sense of reflection, of shared vulnerability. Mark confessed more about his daughter, about the challenges of being away from home. Then the group listened without interruption. Maya shared a story about a failed relationship. Not dramatic, just honest, the kind that leaves a soft ache in your chest. Emily found herself listening intently, feeling the subtle pull of empathy and connection. Every word seemed to matter more than it normally would. Each story a thread weaving them closer together. Daniel, sensing Emily's attention, began talking quietly. He didn't dominate the conversation or ask probing questions. Instead, he spoke of small things, moments he found beautiful in life. The music he listened to, the calm he sought in simple routines. Emily noticed she was leaning slightly toward him without realizing it, drawn to the grounded calm he radiated. There was something in the quiet steadiness of his presence that made her heart slow and then quicken in a way that surprised her. She had forgotten what it felt like to be noticed without pressure, to simply be held in someone's awareness. The chill of the early morning was real, but it didn't matter anymore. The warmth was here. Inside this fragile circle of strangers, friends, the temporary train finally rolled into the station. A low rumble that felt both like an ending and a beginning. The metal doors hissed open, and the smell of warm interiors met the cold outside. Emily's suitcase was heavy in her hand, but lighter somehow. As if the night had removed invisible burdens she hadn't even known she carried. The group filed onto the platform, their pace slower than necessary, savoring the last moments together. Even Sophie, tired and yawning, kept glancing back at the lounge, reluctant to leave behind what they had shared. Daniel walked beside Emily, their shoulders nearly touching, but neither spoke immediately. There was no need. Words would have disrupted the fragile, comforting silence that had formed. Emily's mind wandered, replaying snippets of the night. Mark's quiet confession about his daughter, Maya's laughter, Alex's soft melodies, Sophie's sleepy smiles, Daniel's eyes when he had listened so patiently. And through it all, a strange awareness. She might never see most of these people again. But the memory of this night would linger, tender and warm. The train doors opened with a gentle squeak. The group hesitated a moment longer, savoring the air between them. Then, as one, they moved forward. Emily found herself standing beside Daniel as the train began to board passengers. Her heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. The night had been unplanned, chaotic even. But it had become something precious, something that left a gentle ache at the thought of ending. She knew goodbyes were coming. But she also realized that endings could contain beginnings. Once inside, Emily chose a window seat, glancing out at the slowly fading platform. The snow drifted, soft and persistent, and for a moment she felt like she could breathe again after months of tension. Daniel followed and sat across from her, not too close, but close enough to share warmth and quiet energy. They exchanged a glance that held unspoken words. "Thank you. I understand. I'll remember this." There was no need to speak. The depth of the night, the connections formed, were enough to carry the sentiment. Mark and Maya found seats nearby, quietly talking about her upcoming art project and the ways he hoped to be more present for his daughter. Sophie leaned against the window, tired but calm, while Alex quietly strummed his guitar in a low, almost meditative rhythm. The atmosphere inside the train was different from the usual rush of travel. Here there was reflection, there was memory-making, and there was quiet understanding. The night, with all its unexpected twists, had forged something rare and meaningful. Emily thought about the choices she faced. She could go home and return to the routines and loneliness she had been living with, or she could take this sense of openness, this awareness of connection into her life. The warmth she felt in her chest wasn't just from the body heat of strangers sharing a small space. It was the understanding that people mattered, that trust could form even in unexpected circumstances. The night had shown her that love, care, and empathy could exist outside of planned events, outside of careful expectations. Daniel glanced at her again, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Emily returned it, feeling a strange courage in the simplicity of their silent exchange. No declarations, no pressure, just recognition. In that look, she sensed the possibility of something beyond this train ride, something that could grow slowly, gently, and carefully, like a seed taking root in winter, promising bloom in spring. She let herself imagine what it would feel like to explore that, even if just a little after this night as the train began to move. Emily pressed her hand lightly against her suitcase, as if grounding herself in the reality of leaving the station behind while holding on to the warmth of the night. The lights of the platform flickered past the window, fading into white snow and early dawn. Outside, the world was waking, but inside the train, time felt suspended, still carrying echoes of laughter, soft conversations, and music. Each person on the train was wrapped in their own thoughts, yet bound together by what had transpired. Sophie, noticing Emily lost in thought, gave her a small smile. It was nice, wasn't it? Being stuck here together. Emily nodded, thinking about how fleeting moments like these often carried more weight than months of ordinary life. Even Alex, who had said very little, looked peaceful, his music a comforting thread in the quiet. Maya leaned her head slightly toward Mark, talking softly. And Emily realized that this night had touched everyone differently, yet deeply. Everyone had found a piece of themselves reflected in the others. Something that would linger beyond the temporary train. Beyond the fleeting hours of an unexpected encounter, Emily felt a mix of gratitude and longing. Gratitude for the strangers who had made the night bearable, memorable, and tender. Longing for the gentle connection she felt with Daniel, the quiet understanding that seemed rare in the world. Their interactions had been soft, almost imperceptible, yet charged with meaning. She didn't know where this could go, or if it even would. But the feeling mattered a spark she hadn't realized she was missing. The train approached Emily's stop. the motion slowing, the rhythm shifting to finality. The moment felt delicate, suspended. She and Daniel both rose, gathering their things, aware that leaving the train would end this shared space. Yet there was a new awareness in her chest, quiet hope that life had just opened a small door, a door that could be revisited, cherished, or simply remembered. As they stepped onto the platform, the morning air crisp against their faces,